What's good, everybody? It's your boy Big Nate. Welcome to Big Nate's Book Reviews, some of the best book reviews, and today we are reviewing John Milton's Paradise Lost. So I got my doobie right here. It is ready to be sparked, and today we are smoking this for John Mizzy Milton. So if you got your doobie at home, you already know the drill. Go ahead and spark that, and then we are finna get right into it. So while I'm sparking the doobie, I'm not even going to mention, because we got a big one today, so I can't even mention my podcast and how we have just like we've done a lot of awesome episodes recently, including The Ones Who Walk Away from Unlocked by Ursula K. Le Guin, featuring Jared Henderson from The Classical Mind. So we won't even be able to talk about that. We're just going to have to get right into the book. So without further ado, let's get into the book. So Paradise Lost was published in 1667, so John Milton is indeed an old head. And an particularly interesting thing about this book is that John Milton composed the entire thing blind, which is actually fascinating to me for reasons we'll get into. But I find Paradise Lost to actually be a particularly like visual, physical, even geographical sort of story. That's one of the things that I love about it, and it's just crazy to me that he did this blind. Like that really does almost change my perspective on the story. And to the people who have been to my podcast, you will know that we've discussed the fact that Borges was also blind, and he's also like very visual as well. So that's just something to consider throughout the rest of this book review. But the declared purpose of Milton's writing this book was to declare or to justify the ways of God to men. So let's find out whether or not he did that. So just briefly, what is the book about? I will honestly just say it's about the fall of mankind, as in like them committing original sin, eating the Adam and Eve, eating the apple and everything, as well as the fall of Satan from heaven, and as well him and all his leagues of other fallen angels falling to hell. And then so that's actually where the book starts, and then like he gets his revenge on God basically by flying to his newfound creation, Earth, and with the humans. And then and there's a lot of stuff that happens. Like there's a lot of awesome fucking stuff that happens, including like the 7 days of creation, which is just like, that's what I mean. Like he did this shit blind. That's crazy. But the war in heaven as well between like the fallen angels and Lucifer and God. Like there's a lot of good stuff in this book, but just generally speaking, it's like fall of mankind / fall of Satan. Okay. One of, I think, the main aspects of this book, and he is arguably the protagonist of the entire story, arguably, although I would argue it, is the character of Satan in Paradise Lost. So Satan in this book, among other things, is depicted in a way that I have like never seen anything close like to Satan being. He actually has like very deep emotional and like moral complexity to him. So just as like a fun point, I guess, is I have like, I'm looking at it right now. It's like it's a big ass painting. Well, it's like a poster of the painting that's like framed in this nice frame. I'll put it's a picture called The Fallen Angel, which I should be posting right here. I honestly forget who it's by, but it's based off of Paradise Lost. And first off, it's just a fire picture, but it's like, and so that's Satan, and he's like angry, like you can see he mad, but then there's like a tear falling down his eye. He's got a tear falling down, and like that is like the perfect encapsulation of like who Satan is in this book, because he's like he's a character who you ultimately, I think, sympathize with, but that's because he's just so full of like despair and regret, and then of course anger. So okay, let's like get into this. The whole thing with Satan is the beginning of the book. He is pitched from heaven, where he was like outshining all the other angels, myriad though bright. He was outshining them, and then he gets cast into hell, and the demons say, "Now misery hath joined in equal ruin," for how like great he once was. So he falls, and hell is just like, this is what I mean, where I'm like, I keep saying it, but like the fact that Milton is blind is crazy. And I wonder how much it contributes. I feel like it has to, because whatever I'm going to say right now pales in comparison to like the actual descriptions. Like it's actually insane what Milton is able to do in this book. But just in general, like hell is this place with like literal like floods and whirlwinds of like tempestuous fire, and there's like adamantine chains and brimstone and like sulfurous hail and veins of liquid fire. It's like fucked up, and like all the angels like fall. And it's like they're literally in the beginning of the book, they can't even get up. Like they're literally pinned to the ground under the weight of like their anguish and misery. It's insane. So, and he came from heaven, which I'll talk about later. But like, you know, this is truly like his fall from grace. And it's so bad that like, hold up. It's so bad that the other fallen angels, when they see Satan, because he used to be one of the top dogs, they see Satan, they said, if thou beest he, but oh how fallen, because they literally don't even recognize him at first. Now misery hath joined. Oh hell no. And equal ruin. But you know, eventually like Satan like regroups himself basically, and there's actually like this amazing like parliament scene in hell. And you know, it's like, so he talks a big game, because this is where you get the famous line, better to reign in hell than serve in heaven, right? So that's like what he's on. But then there's like these lines where he said like, I me, how little do they know under what torments inwardly I groan, only supreme in misery, such joy ambition finds. And it's like, dang, because so it's like, he is like, and he's constantly reminded this about throughout the story, but he is just like absolutely devastated, like inside, right? And then like you get this too when he goes to planet Earth, or like, yeah, the Earth, like God's newfound creation. And like, for one, just even the sight of the sun, he tells the sun to hide his hateful beams. He says, sight hateful, sight tormenting, because it just the sun reminds him of like that beautiful state that he's fallen from irrevocably. That's the thing. He crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed, and he has to deal with that for the rest of like eternity. And you feel his pain. Like he relives that over and over, because then he goes into Earth, paradise, and it's like Earth at that time was literally just an extension of heaven, like literally. And again, the words, like I can't do it justice. You just have to read it. But it's like these beautiful descriptions of Earth, where it's just like rows and rows of the goodliest trees loaded with the fairest fruit, and there's like ambrosial nectar, and like it just like flowers blossoming everywhere, bro, and like sapphire streams rolling over sands of pearl and gold. Like I'm telling you, it's like, and that's nothing, dude. He goes on for like pages on this shit, which again, it's crazy that he's blind. But then he lands on Earth, and he sees Adam and Eve, and he's just like, and like almost like their perfection of their form and like the fullness of their love. And he just said, abashed the devil stood and felt how awful goodness is. Like, dude, he's like, there's even a part where he's literally like speechless. There's even a part where he's so captivated by how beautiful everything is that for like an instant he actually forgets like the torments of hell, because they follow him. Even though he's not in hell, it's the same, you feel it inwardly. But like he's so enraptured by the beauty of it for an instant, it like actually he forgets it. And then of course like it comes back, and it just comes back like all the harder. So it's, you again, despair truly is the word, and he's constantly dealing with that, reliving, and basically he's just like, okay, if you can't beat God, I'm basically just gonna get revenge. He just goes out to set out to destroy his creation. Quote, which if not victory is yet revenge. Spite then with spite is best repaid. He's just like, fuck it. Which is like ultimately, I think, again, like tragic, bro. Like it's kind of almost like he loses this war, so he has to like sneak in, and he's just like overwhelmed by the beauty of it too. It's, yeah, bro. Satan, that's what I mean. He's a very interesting character for a number of reasons, including the fact that like the whole Adam and Eve thing, right? That's another huge part of the story, is like just Earth and the committing of original sin. Like they put Adam and Eve on this planet that is beautiful, like beyond words beautiful. And all he said, one condition, he said, do not eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Like you truly got one job, and you see the state of bliss. It's like, okay, that's nothing. But anyway, Satan is like, like Satan goes up to them to like convince her. I imagine it looks something like this. But his line of reasoning to convince Eve to eat the apple, like I found actually very compelling. He comes out to her and he said, He said, forbidden knowledge, suspicious, reasonless. Do you only stand by ignorance? Is that your happy state? Proof of your obedience and faith? Ignorance, like, is that like you like? There's, and that's the thing too. Is it's like humans, obviously, it's like that's what makes us human. Like, we would not be human if we did not have a desire for knowledge. So he's like, Satan is basically just like, God wouldn't put this here. And first off, he wouldn't get so mad over something so petty. Second off, he wouldn't put knowledge right in your face and then like not want you to use. He said, if it's knowledge, if it's good knowledge, then God can't hold it back from you and be just. If it's knowledge of evil, then better known since easier shunned. He says, so like, just, you know, like, why not eat the apple? There's no reason. The peak of his argument to me, what like really hit me on another level, like this is a line that's gonna stick with me for a while. One of the things he says during his like little argument, he says, wherein lies the offense that man should thus attain to know? Wherein, like, what is wrong in the pursuit of knowledge? When it's, again, that's like literally what makes us, that's what separates us from the beasts, is our like reason and like our so like and then the question too of just like who is this God anyway that really just like put the tree right in front of him and said don't do, and then it's like, is that even an ethical thing to do? To like, it's kind of like, because the whole reason he's into like free will is because it defeats the purpose to create races of beings that have to obey you, have to give you praise, because at that point it's not real obedience and it's not real praise. So what he does is he says he gives humans free will sufficient to have stood though free to fall. But even then, it's still fucked up that like you would just be like, here's knowledge, and then it makes you wonder, like, what did Adam and Eve actually, like, what was their level of intellectual thought, and like, would they have done like philosophy and everything? You know what I mean? Like, what is actually in the tree of knowledge of good and evil? But anyway, so yeah, he does that. But the whole thing, and this is of course like the central problem with religion just in general. I people say it like it's a natural thing. Is like, God is omniscient. He knows everything that was, everything that is, everything that will be. So he knew humans were going to eat the apple. He knew Lucifer would do his thing, and yet he still made us, which like has resulted in like, just why couldn't he have done the same thing? Like, if he can omnipotent, why wouldn't he have made it so like that didn't happen? But then again, that's the free will thing, sufficient to have stood though free to fall. But then at the same time, dude, the angels rebelled. And it wasn't just Satan, it was millions of angels that rebelled against God. So it's like, clearly there's something going on there. And then humans disobey God, and then even at the end there's a little bit of like Exodus, and he talks about the flood just for a little bit, and people come back and like continue disobeying it. And it's like, at that point, is rebellion like necessitated by free will? Like, does the fact that free will exists entail the fact that at some point there, anyway? So by the way, this is why I like this book. It's just so full of rich moral questions. But there's a part literally where God points out, like, God and Jesus are chilling, and God points to Satan physically, and he says, he quote, foretells the success of Satan in perverting mankind. So it's an interesting question. But like, in defense of God, and this is where I think Milton's writing is like critical, because he said, okay, he made this book to justify the ways of gods and men. When you read the descriptions of paradise, it's like, bro, I don't care what the fuck, don't like it. Do not eat that apple. I don't even care if it's got philosophy and like free knowledge and everything. Don't eat that fucking apple, because you see how beautiful. And then heaven too. Heaven is, and again, I keep saying it, but it's like, when you read like with the blind thing, it's like this like infinite palace of like diamonds and like gold, thick with sparkling gems, and like the floor is literally like, the pavement is made out of like stars, like the Milky Way, and there's just like angels singing in perfect harmonious tune, playing their harps all day, like, bro. And then God is just like, go forth and multiply. Like, that's his thing. And in a way, he was kind of just trying to like multiply the bliss by like trillions, billions. Just don't do this one thing. But yeah, so round and round we go, right? Like, that's the crazy thing about the whole question just in general. But Paradise Lost makes it particularly so. But another thing I just gotta mention, I'll mention in passing, is the fact that the world that Milton builds, like the universe, his cosmos, is like a huge part of this book that I loved, at least, because it's almost like geographical. Like, literally, it's like you got heaven like up here, and then hanging from a golden chain on some like Zeus shit. I'm pretty sure that, I think that's the thing in ancient Greece too. But hanging by a golden chain is the earth, and then like leagues below that is hell, and then there's like interstitial chaos space, like capital C chaos, who's like its own entity, deity almost, but like everywhere like throughout it. And then it's like, you know, when Satan goes to earth, he doesn't just like whoop teleport and then like he's at, it's, even though he's like divine, he still has to like cross, and he encounters a lot of problems, in fact, like going across, and he's flying past like planets and stars and shit. So it's like he goes on a, like almost like a physical, I won't say odyssey, but you know what I'm saying, he goes on a physical journey. And then there's a part 2 where it's like, this was fucked up too, because they like it. So sin and death, I think, are the offspring of Satan, which is fire. But they are like their own deities as well, that like build a huge bridge from earth to hell, so that they can usher in just like hellish soul, like just make for easier passage. And it's like it's like broad, wide streets, just like, bro, they're ushering in. So that's what I mean. And then God still did that, bro. And what did I do? That was Adam and Eve. That wasn't even my fault. Like. Anyway, shit like that. But my favorite part was when Adam and Eve eat the apple. It introduces it introduces seasons, because it was eternal spring before that. Eternal spring. It was beautiful. And then they introduce seasons now. So all the angels literally together get they tilt the entire axis of the earth, so that like that's how seasons get introduced. And now there's like bitter cold and like hot scorching summers, all that shit. So and it's like that all throughout the book. This book, among other things, like speaks the language of the cosmic. Like it's like latitudes and longitudes and like equatorial beams and luminescent orbs and masses and elements and like all that shit. It's basically, it's like Paradise, because I didn't even mention, this is like a poem. It's written in the ancient epic style, but like with modern cosmology. So it like for that reason alone, this book appeals to like so many things. And just like this again, I said it somewhere else, but like the aesthetic too of just like hell, and even just like earth and heaven. Like, dude, these descriptions are crazy. But I give this book A+. I think I give, no, not like, I think that's obvious. I give it A+. I think anybody less, or I think anybody besides me would give it less than an A+, because I actually have critique, but for me, I can't give anything less than A+. I'm sorry, I just can't. But like one critique I have, for instance, is the fact that like it's a crazy critique to have, but dude, Satan is the only like interesting character in this book. Like God and Adam and Eve and the angels and the fallen angels, like they're cool, but they lack a certain depth that like Satan had. Like they don't have any personality. There's no like real like character, whereas Satan is like fully fleshed out. Like that's what I mean. He's almost like the protagonist slash like ultimately tragic figure in Paradise Lost. But like to me, I'm not like, I feel bad even saying this, but it's like he didn't justify the ways of God to me. He justified the ways of Satan to me. I'm not even gonna lie, but not completely, not completely. But anyway, you get it. Hopefully through the course of this video, you picked up on what I'm putting down. So also it's written in like Middle English or some shit. Like this was the most challenging book I have ever read in my life. I would say I can't think of one. I would read for like a whole full undistracted hour of like close reading, and I would read maybe 6, 7, 8 pages tops, and it's not like a short book. So, but it was totally worth it. It's also like super dense. Like, dude, every word, it's crazy. But the writing here is just like brilliant. Honestly, it's like the characters. I'm telling you, that's the only thing I don't really like about this book. But the writing itself just can carry the entire book for me. Period. So, okay, well, I think that's about it. Follow me on Instagram at Big Nate's Book Reviews. Let's just stop playing this game. Get to my podcast, Big Nate Short Story Club, which is in fact home of the best short story club. Link will be in the description. Follow me on Goodreads, and thank you for watching Big Nate's Book Reviews, home of the best book reviews.